He was just a single father trying to fix a broken car in the scorching heat of Texas. She was a billionaire passing by, powerful, untouchable, until fate brought them face to face. What happened next will challenge everything you thought you knew about love, justice, and second chances. Stay with us. This story will break your heart and put it back together. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The sun was merciless over the cracked Texas highway, turning the air into a mirage-filled haze that danced above the asphalt. Cars passed occasionally, blurs of motion in the shimmering heat, but none slowed down. On the side of the road, a battered old Ford pickup truck sat motionless, its hood lifted as smoke curled lazily into the sky. Beside it stood a man in his early 40s, his white t-shirt clinging to his back with sweat, one hand on his hip and the other gripping a rag he'd used to check the oil, though he already knew it wasn't the oil. It was something worse. Jack Miller sighed and looked at the horizon, squinting beneath the brim of his faded baseball cap. His hands were rough and stained from years of manual work, his face worn but kind, the lines etched deep from both worry and laughter. But today there wasn't much to laugh about. He glanced at the car seat in the back where his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was dozing in the shade of a sunshade he'd taped across the window. Her soft breaths were steady, peaceful. It was the first weekend they'd had off together in weeks. Jack had promised her a day at the water park, just the two of them, a rare treat. And now, thanks to his dying truck, they were stranded miles from the nearest town, with barely one bar of service on his phone. He tried calling again. The screen blinked. Call failed. Jack clenched his jaw and muttered under his breath. He leaned under the hood again, wiping sweat from his brow and checking the wires, the belts, anything. But truth be told, he was no mechanic. He knew his limits, and right now, he'd hit them. A vehicle approached, tires crunching gravel, the hum of a powerful engine cutting through the stillness. Jack stood upright and turned toward the sound. A sleek, black Escalade slowed down and pulled over a few feet ahead of his truck. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a striking woman in her mid-30s. Her skin glowed a deep bronze under the sun, and her afro curls were tucked into a silk scarf. She wore designer sunglasses, her lipstick flawless, her nails perfectly manicured. She looked like she belonged in a magazine, not on the dusty edge of a rural highway. She looked him over for a moment before speaking. "You look like you could use a hand." Jack hesitated. In his experience, strangers and fancy cars didn't often stop to help guys like him, and women like her definitely didn't. "Yeah, I guess I do," he said. "My truck just died. I think it overheated, and I've got my little girl in the back seat." The woman stepped out of her SUV. Her heels clicked against the gravel, and Jack almost told her not to bother. Those shoes weren't meant for roadside repairs, but she walked with purpose. "I'm Kennedy Thomas," she said, extending a hand. "Let's see what we can do." Jack took her hand. Firm grip, warm, confident. "Jack Miller. Appreciate you stopping." Kennedy approached the truck's open hood, peering inside. "You've got a ruptured hose," she said after a moment. "Coolant's gone. That's why it smoked." Jack blinked. "You know cars?" "I know enough. My uncle used to run a garage. I spent my summers under hoods instead of at the mall." She went back to her vehicle and returned with a small emergency kit, a jug of water, some tape, even gloves. Jack watched as she got to work patching the hose enough to hold water temporarily. "You'll still need a mechanic," she said, "but this might get you to the nearest station." Jack was stunned. "I don't even know what to say." She glanced at him. "How about thank you?" He laughed, his first real laugh of the day. "Thank you, really, I mean it." Lily stirred in the back seat and opened her eyes, blinking. She saw Kennedy and whispered, "Daddy, who's that lady?" Jack turned to her. "That's Miss Kennedy. She's helping us." Kennedy walked over to the open window and gave Lily a gentle smile. "Hi, sweetheart. You hungry? I've got snacks in the car." Jack's instinct was to decline, but Lily was already nodding, eyes wide. Kennedy returned with a small bag of pretzels and a juice box, which she handed to the little girl. Then she looked back at Jack. "You sure you're okay driving like this? I can follow you into town if you want." Jack hesitated, pride and practicality at war. But the way she asked, like she wasn't offering charity, just help, made it easier to say yes. "That'd be great." As they got back in their vehicles, Jack's mind churned. He hadn't seen a woman like Kennedy anywhere near here. She had the air of someone important, someone far removed from his world. And yet, here she was, on the side of a forgotten road, helping a broke single dad with a broken-down truck and no prospects. The engine coughed but started, sputtering reluctantly. Kennedy gave him a thumbs-up through her windshield, and as they pulled back onto the road, Jack glanced down at the steering wheel, then at the mirror, watching her SUV behind him like a guardian. Something about this felt different, significant. He didn't know her story or why she was out here, but he had the strangest feeling this wasn't the end of their encounter, not by a long shot. The air conditioning inside the gas station was a welcome contrast to the oven outside. Jack stood by the cashier, sipping a bottle of lukewarm water as Lily clutched his leg. Kennedy stood a few steps away, scanning the snack aisle with casual elegance, but Jack noticed how people looked at her. Not with disdain, more like awe. She carried herself like someone used to being in control, someone people listened to. The station was nearly empty. Just an old man at the lottery machine and a couple of teenagers giggling near the fridge doors. Jack glanced at Kennedy again. She wasn't just helpful. She was confident, resourceful, the kind of person who didn't just stop on highways for broken-down pickups. "So," he finally said, breaking the silence between them as they stepped outside into the heat again. "What brings you out this way? You don't exactly look local." Kennedy tilted her sunglasses down, flashing him a look that was both playful and direct. "Business meeting in Dallas got canceled. I decided to take the long way home." "Where's home?" She smiled. "Houston, you?" "Just outside Sulphur Springs. Small place, nothing fancy." As they walked back toward their cars, she paused. "Look, your patch job might hold another few miles, but that truck needs a real repair. You got a mechanic you trust?" Jack sighed. "Used to, but he moved, and I can't afford dealership prices." Kennedy's brow furrowed for a split second. Then she looked at her phone and started typing. "I know someone not far from here. Good guy. I'll give him a call." "You don't have to." She shot him a look. "I want to." Minutes later, Jack found himself following her Escalade again, this time down a dusty side road that led to a small auto shop surrounded by cornfields. The building looked modest, corrugated tin, gravel lot, faded signage, but the man who stepped out wore a crisp button-down and smiled wide when he saw Kennedy. "Miss Thomas," he greeted her with genuine warmth. "Didn't expect to see you out here." "Had a change of plans, Daniel. This is Jack and his daughter Lily. Think you can take a look?" Daniel nodded and gestured to the truck. "Absolutely." As Daniel popped the hood and began his inspection, Jack turned to Kennedy, arms crossed. "Okay, I'll bite. Who are you really?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped a few feet away, looking out at the horizon, the wind brushing a curl across her cheek. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower. "My name's Kennedy Thomas. I own a consulting firm that works with startups and minority-owned businesses. I also sit on the board of a few nonprofits, and I guess I invest in people." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You invest in people?" She looked at him then, directly. "Sometimes life puts someone in your path and you have a choice. You either keep driving, or you stop and see what's meant to come of it." Jack didn't know what to say to that. Her words struck something in him, some buried part that remembered what it was like to hope for more. "Why help me?" he asked finally. "You don't know me." Kennedy hesitated, then glanced at Lily, who was now sitting on the steps of the shop, petting a sleepy shop cat. "Because I see a man doing his best," she said quietly. "And sometimes that's all the reason you need." Inside the shop, Daniel waved them over. "You were lucky," he said to Jack. "The damage isn't too bad. I can fix it today, but you'll need a new hose. I've got one in stock." Jack rubbed the back of his neck. "How much?" Daniel named a price that was reasonable, but still more than Jack had in his wallet. Kennedy must have noticed his hesitation because she smoothly stepped forward. "Put it on my tab," she said. Jack turned sharply. "No, I can't let you—" "I'm not asking," she interrupted gently. "Let me do this. Call it an early birthday gift." Jack exhaled slowly, heart tight in his chest. He hated accepting help. It made him feel small, weak. But the way Kennedy looked at him wasn't with pity. It was respect, like she understood pride without mocking it. "Thank you," he said softly. "Really?" Later, while Daniel worked on the truck, Jack and Kennedy sat at a picnic table behind the shop. Lily was inside, drawing with crayons the receptionist had given her. A breeze stirred the air, and cicadas buzzed in the distance. "Your daughter's sweet," Kennedy said. "She's my everything," Jack replied. "Her mom left when she was 3 months old. Said she wasn't cut out for diapers and late nights." "I'm sorry," Kennedy said. "Don't be," Jack replied. "It hurt back then, but I figured out who I am because of Lily. She's why I get up every morning." Kennedy studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, not the polite kind, but the kind that came from somewhere deeper. "You ever think about doing more? Bigger things?" Jack chuckled. "Like what? Running a Fortune 500 company? Wearing suits and flying private?" She tilted her head. "Why not? You're smart, hard-working, and you care. That's rare." He looked at her, really looked, and for a brief second, a strange sensation hit him, like he was standing at the edge of something unexpected. "What are you suggesting?" he asked slowly. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she pulled out a card from her purse and slid it across the table. "When you're ready," she said, "call me." Jack stared at the card. Kennedy Thomas, KT Ventures and Philanthropy. This day had started with a broken truck and a broken plan. But now, sitting here in the golden haze of afternoon, something had shifted. He didn't know what Kennedy wanted from him, or if she wanted anything at all. But for the first time in a long while, Jack felt like the road ahead might hold more than just detours. It might actually lead somewhere worth going. The next morning, the light streamed through the thin curtains of Jack's small house like a golden veil. The place was modest. 2 bedrooms, a squeaky screen door, and a porch that creaked under weight. Jack sat at the edge of the couch, sipping his coffee as Lily chased her cereal around the bowl. She giggled as her spoon clinked against the ceramic. Jack smiled faintly, but his thoughts were elsewhere. On the business card that lay on the coffee table, on the name embossed in silver, Kennedy Thomas. He picked it up again, rubbing the corner between his fingers. Her offer had been vague, but her eyes, those calm, certain eyes, said she meant it, meant something real. He stood up, grabbed his phone, and stepped outside. For a few minutes, he just paced back and forth on the porch, the card in one hand, the phone in the other. Then, finally, with a breath, he dialed. Kennedy answered on the third ring. "Jack," she said, her voice warm. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." He cleared his throat. "Yeah, about what you said yesterday, the offer. Is it still on the table? Why don't you come to Houston?" she said simply. "Let's talk in person." He hesitated. "I don't know if I can leave Lily." "Bring her," Kennedy interrupted. "You both need this." And just like that, it was settled. 2 days later, Jack and Lily arrived in Houston. The city loomed large and glittering in the sun, its skyline filled with glass towers and endless energy. Jack had been here only once, years ago. It felt like another world. Kennedy's office was on the 23rd floor of a sleek building downtown. Jack had never ridden such a smooth elevator. Lily clutched his hand, her eyes wide, staring at the digital floor counter. The doors opened into a minimalist lobby filled with warm wood, soft jazz, and a receptionist who smiled as if she'd been trained to greet kings. "Mr. Weller?" she asked. "Miss Thomas is expecting you." They were led into a private conference room with a view that stretched for miles. And then Kennedy entered, dressed sharply in a fitted cream suit, her natural curls tied up, her presence calm and commanding. "Jack," she greeted, nodding to Lily as well. "Welcome." After a few pleasantries, she gestured for him to sit. A sleek portfolio lay on the table. She slid it toward him. "I did a little digging," she said. "You manage logistics for a construction company. Oversaw scheduling, labor coordination, budget tracking." Jack blinked. "How did you—" "I listen," she said. "And I read resumes." He frowned. "I haven't submitted a resume to anyone in years." "You told me enough," she replied, calm. "And I asked around." Jack felt a strange mix of admiration and nervousness. She was sharp, not just rich, strategic. "What is all this?" he asked, flipping open the portfolio. "A project," she said. "I'm investing in a new community initiative. We're building a mixed-use complex in 3rd Ward, retail, affordable housing, training centers. I need someone on the ground, someone who gets people, someone who's not afraid of getting their hands dirty." Jack blinked again. "You want me to run this?" "I want you to manage the logistics," she said. "You won't be alone. You'll have a team. I just need the right heart behind it." He looked at the papers again. Timelines, blueprints, partner names. It felt like something meant for someone else. Someone more polished, more educated. Not a single dad from a dusty highway town. "I don't know," he muttered. "Why me?" Kennedy leaned forward, eyes steady. "Because you didn't break when life tried to break you. You showed me who you are when you thought no one was watching." Jack didn't speak. He looked at Lily, coloring quietly at the end of the table with a box of crayons Kennedy had provided. Then he looked out the window. The city stretched out, vast and full of movement. Maybe, just maybe, there was space here for someone like him. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll do it." Kennedy smiled, slow and proud. "Good. You start Monday." In the weeks that followed, Jack found himself transforming. He moved into a small apartment provided through the initiative. Kennedy arranged a local school for Lily, and every day she came home beaming, her backpack full of drawings and new words. The work was hard, but it was purposeful. Jack oversaw teams, managed deliveries, solved disputes, and found a rhythm that made sense. The people respected him because he respected them. And Kennedy? She was never far. Some days she'd drop by the site unannounced, walking in heels through gravel and dust. They'd talk on rooftops and trailers under makeshift tents, always about the work. But something else hung in the air, something unspoken but growing. One Friday night, after the day's heat had finally cooled, Jack was finishing up when Kennedy appeared at the edge of the construction zone. "You ever take a break?" she asked, smiling. He chuckled. "This is the break." She handed him a paper bag. "Dinner. I had extra." They sat on the edge of a cement foundation, eating tacos out of foil wrappers. For a long time they didn't speak. Then Jack said quietly, "I haven't felt this useful in a long time." "You are," she replied. "You've always been." He looked at her. The moonlight caught her cheekbone, her eyes. "Why do you do all this?" he asked. "Really?" Kennedy took a deep breath. "Because no one ever did it for me. And because I remember what it's like to wait for someone to believe you're worth saving." Jack stared at her, heart full of something unnamed. Gratitude, admiration, maybe even hope. "I think you're saving a lot more people than you realize," he whispered. Kennedy smiled, but there was something in her gaze now, something tender. "Maybe," she said, "and maybe I was waiting for someone like you, too." Fall swept through Houston with a soft hush, casting golden leaves across sidewalks and bringing cooler winds through the city. Jack stood at the window of his modest apartment, watching Lily play on the small lawn below. She was laughing, truly laughing, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Jack didn't feel fear trailing that sound. Life had begun to settle. Each day, Jack drove to the construction site, now half completed, where workers greeted him with respect. His confidence had grown, not in a boastful way, but in the quiet steadiness of a man who knew he belonged. He had even bought himself a new button-down shirt. Kennedy had teased him about it, asking if he had a date. He just smirked and said, "Maybe." But what simmered between them was no longer subtle. One evening, after a long meeting, Kennedy lingered as the staff filtered out of the office. Jack stayed too, packing up his papers slowly, sensing she wanted to say something. "Jack," she said, her voice gentler than usual. He turned. She was standing near the window, her back half turned to him, arms crossed, not in defiance but in contemplation. "I never expected you," she said quietly. "Not just your work. You." Jack stepped closer, unsure of the air between them. "Neither did I. I built this life with brick and fire," she continued, "but sometimes I wonder if I forgot how to feel safe in it." Jack understood that too well. "We both did," he said. She looked at him then, really looked, and the tension that had hummed under every interaction finally broke. Kennedy stepped forward, and Jack met her halfway. Their kiss was not rushed, not desperate, but certain. It was a beginning. Weeks passed, and the project neared completion. On the opening day, the complex stood tall. Dozens of families lined up to view their future homes, students enrolled for training programs, and journalists snapped photos beneath banners with Kennedy's name on them. But what drew attention wasn't just Kennedy. It was Jack, standing at her side. Some noticed the way she glanced at him, the way he placed a protective hand on her back, the ease between them. When Kennedy took the mic, she thanked the architects, the sponsors, and the city. But when her eyes landed on Jack, her voice grew soft. "There's someone who reminded me that strength isn't always loud," she said. Sometimes it's a man holding his daughter's hand, choosing not to give up. Sometimes it's quiet dignity, and sometimes it's just being willing to believe again. Jack looked down, humbled. After the ceremony, Lily pulled at his sleeve. "Dad," she said, grinning, "they said they're opening a community garden. Can I help?" He nodded, brushing her hair back. "You can help build anything you want." That night, they all returned to Kennedy's home. No longer strangers, no longer unsure. The walls of her mansion didn't feel cold anymore. Laughter echoed through the hallways as Lily raced Kennedy's dog down the hallway, giggling with every bounce. Jack sat beside Kennedy in the kitchen, sharing a bottle of wine, leaning into the warm rhythm they had found. There were no grand declarations, no promises they couldn't keep. Just presence. Just peace. Months later, a photograph would go viral online. A little girl in overalls planting sunflowers in a raised bed, her father behind her in a white shirt and dusty jeans, and a woman in a sleek suit crouched beside them, smiling with her whole face. The caption read, "This is what rebuilding looks like." And somewhere between the Texas highways and the gleaming towers of Houston, a single father and a billionaire woman had rewritten what it meant to save and be saved. Sometimes the most unexpected encounters change lives forever. A broken car, a hardened heart, and a second chance neither of them saw coming. If this story touched you, share it, like it, and subscribe for more powerful moments like this. Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one.